Welcome to Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico. I'm your host, Steve Ricardo. We're once again live at the New Alliance Music and Art Complex in beautiful Union Square in Somerville, Mass. And as usual, we have Dorchester's own Herb Morsiglio at the engineering board. Well, we have a lively crew in here today. The intro music you just heard even has a little more special meaning this week, as we have Ellie V and Joe Wizda of the Charms here in the studio as our guest. And it was in I said 19. It was in not that long ago, 2004, that they recorded the song not 1904. It was in 2004 that they recorded the song So Pretty at the original New Alliance studio at 1312 Boylston Street in the Fenway, a building that has been long demolished and replaced by luxury condos. In fact, they also filmed a video there for the song, the Wish Song. So before we bring Ellie and Joe on, and also Preston and Josie are here with us too today, you'll be able to see them on video and maybe hear them. Yep. So
I don't know if these kids are just like random outside.
Before we bring Ellie and Joe on, I want to thank our patrons who have been supporting the Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico podcast at our site on Patreon.com/Twisted Rico, where you can also support the show for a mere $1 a month. Thank you, Dave, Heather, Chris, Maria, Lee, Suke, Chad, Matt, Kim, Ellie, Andy, and our newest patron, we have another Chris. Your support is greatly appreciated. All right, I hate to do this, but I have to do it. I also want to mention a couple of great people who recently passed away. Very recently. Firstly, drummer Reed Mullen of the Raleigh, North Carolina hardcore metal outfit Corrosion of Conformity. I only hung out with Reed in person a few times, but we spoke on the phone a lot, and I also had a great deal of respect for COC and had the great privilege of working on the Animosity album. Very shocking and surprised to hear him go. And this one is especially hard for me. My old friend Ron Gowdy, who I had the very fortunate extreme I knew I would mess this up. I was very fortunate, extremely happy and privileged to work with Ron at Enigma Records. Ron was a great mentor to me and so much more. It taught me so much about the music business. He knew independent distribution inside and out, and paved the way for me to take over the distro at Enigma. He was a great producer and record company guy, and even more so, a beautiful human being who I had great deal of pleasure. Sorry, guys. Ron was a good friend of mine. When I heard he passed away, it definitely it shook me up a little. So rest in peace, my friend. You'll be greatly missed by the many lives that you touched.
Sometimes till you wake up, I don't wanna be there in the crowd.
we're back. That was Gimme Your Love by the Charms from the deep end of the dial, which as it stands now was the last record by the Charms. Maybe today we'll find out if there's going to be another Charms record. Before I let you guys talk, I'm just going to do a brief history. I promise, brief. The band formed in 2002, probably less than 2 miles away from this very location. They released 6 records, toured with the New York Dolls, the Romantics, Ian Hunter, the Zombies, Cheap Trick, as well as numerous other tours in their van, including a memorable 52-city tour in 2005 in which they played just about every stinky and smelly club from Troy, New York to Seattle, Washington, thanks to that great booking agent they had. They were on 3 different labels and were featured on several TV shows such as Made, My Super Sweet 16, and in films like Christmas with the Cranks and Broken Flowers. So now let me introduce to you one of the most esteemed graduates ever to come from Vassar College, Ellie V, and the man who could run and win the mayoral race in the beautiful town of Freeland, Pennsylvania, yes. Joe Wizda. Welcome to the Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico podcast.
Thank you.
I'm going to get my inhaler.
And welcome Josie and Preston, future rock stars. It's always good to have future rock stars in the room.
Yep, Josie's playing drums. Okay, all right. So yeah, Josie had her drum lesson the day before yesterday, and was part of a New Year's Eve jam session at Scott Riebling's house.
Wow!
She played Kashmir.
The whole song.
Wow,
yeah,
you're a
song.
Zepp head. Nice.
She plays Mac DeMarco.
Couple pop songs, High Hopes. That was her last recital.
High hopes.
So, yeah.
We have high hopes for this podcast, don't we? This is actually the second time I've had the Charms in the show. We tried to do this one other time in Salem, but we couldn't use that recording because there was an unfortunate audio mishap. So we're here for round 2. And I already did mention that Josie and Preston are here. I had that in my script. These two get around. In fact, we were talking about this a couple episodes ago. While at the Middle East watching The Liars and Jeff Connolly, Josie and Preston were sitting on the side of the stage, very into the show. I mean, they were paying attention. Do you guys like music? Do you listen to a lot of music? I mean, did you like seeing The Liars?
Yeah.
That was cool, right?
Show. What'd you like about Jeff?
What'd you think?
He was cool.
But Josie definitely knows to bring her own microphone if she's the lead singer of a band.
And why would Ellie V, a singer, bring that up? We need to know why you would bring that up.
This is the kind of thing kids notice.
What?
Josie?
Why do you need your own microphone?
Russ, why do you need your own microphone?
I know.
Oh my God.
Yeah, great.
It's saliva, right?
Chit-chat all day.
We're talking about saliva and spit all over the microphones, right? You don't want to get near my microphone, okay? So I have a few interesting topics. Oh yeah, first of all, I wanted to thank you guys publicly for letting us use So Pretty as the intro and outro music every week. It's really a perfect song for the show. It's funny how things change, but not really, because Nick Z, who's one of the producers of the record, has an office right down the hall.
Yeah.
And New Alliance, and this is the new Alliance, was the building. And your manager just happens to be sitting in the room. So not that much has really changed since 2004. Wow.
So 1904.
I did say that. Sorry, I got a little choked up, man. I was thinking about my friend Ron.
I'm sorry about Ron.
When you guys look back at your catalog, what records do you really feel captured the true spirit of the Charms, or which ones would you consider your favorites? Joe, why don't you go first, Joe?
Probably Charmed, I'm sure, because the beginning and...
The first album.
Yeah, and it was a side project, and it was a lot more fun.
I think,
you know what I mean?
What's cool about that record is us having that side project. There was no pressure because we were in other bands and we didn't think anything of it. We were just doing it for fun and just jamming with friends. And so we did this 3-song demo. We sent it out. My other band before this, we'd send out a demo and then it would take months to try to get a gig at like Brownies or wherever, Lakeside Lounge. And when the Charms sent out this 3-song demo, we had Brownies calling it. It was right before they closed, though, wasn't it? It was Brownies, I think. And it was like we sent the demo, and like a week later, we get a call like asking.
So
us
you got
to
a
come
lot of
down.
reaction.
So it was like a lot easier. There was a lot more of an organic uptake. You know, you didn't have to work as hard. So that's kind of when we knew, like, there's something different about this project. So yeah.
I'm hearing music. So we know that you were in Flexi at the time. They were a pretty big band in Boston. Joe, you were in a rockabilly band, right?
Yep, I was.
By the way, Joe, that's a very nice shirt you're wearing. Is that on? Can you see that in the camera? That is beautiful. We'll talk a little more about that shirt later.
Which one are you, Steve? That
I
one?
love my
I'm
shirt.
not the guy from Pennsylvania. I'm the other guy. I got a lot of.
Look what Josie did to my pants, by the way.
No, Preston did that.
What is
Got
it?
putty all over
Putty.
his pants.
Oh, okay.
Got putty all over his pants.
So wait,
and his pants.
Who
Herb,
is
if we
this?
already lost control of the podcast, Herb, yeah. That's Bobby Dahl from the band Poison,
Oh, that's okay. I thought
bass
so.
player of Poison.
Right.
So, Ellie, well, so as far as the records go, Charmed, I'm sure, was your favorite record as well?
I love Pussycat. I actually put together a mix for some of my coworkers who don't know they know Ellie Volkhausen, not Ellie V. And so I was kind of putting together this like a mellow Charms, Jetto Stars, another side project mix, and then like Charms Rockers. And most of what I ended up curating was from Pussycat or Strange Magic.
I can understand that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have that same. And you know what's really funny? Every single song on So Pretty is a great song,
Yeah.
but then you put it up against Pussycat, and it's so hard to, because there's so many good songs. And Strange Magic too. I've told you, Touch is one of my favorite songs. You know, so that American Way. I mean, although there's so much to
It's
pick
weird because
from.
American Way, it's like that was a 2007 release.
Yeah, 2007.
2007?
Yes.
But the lyrics to that, they're even more applicable now.
American
what's
Way
going
was one of
on?
the rare political songs that you actually wrote, right? It was pretty political, wasn't it? Because most
I'm
of
a
your
pretty political person, but
a lot of your
mostly
songs are
steered away
about
from that.
cherry red lipstick. I saw your name on the boys' room wall.
yeah,
You have great lyrics. I'm trying to say they're great lyrics, but I'm not saying that you
but
don't
not
understand
saying it
politics.
Just kidding.
I knew they would be critical of me. This is what happens, Herb, when you have your friends come on your show. Okay, so was Pussycat was Pussycat pretty much the perfect situation for making a record, or did you
No.
guys prefer going to Detroit and recording
Oh
with
That's a demo.
legendary garage rock producer? Can I just finish the question at
Yeah.
least? Or, was Pussycat the perfect situation, or was it better to go to Detroit with like a legendary garage rock producer like Jim Diamond? And what were the major differences between those two recording processes?
Okay, before we answer that question, I want to comment on the question. The leading nature of that question reminds me of the Republicans delivering a question during the impeachment trial. Like, obviously, we know the answer. Wait,
So
what's going
Preston
on?
left the door open.
Oh,
Sorry,
okay.
it gets kind of loud out there.
Yeah,
you know.
sorry about that.
We're-
So, Joe, take this one. That was not the ideal
No,
situation.
no. I mean, did you forget the question?
No, I'm just wondering where our child
Preston's
went.
wandering. Is it okay that he's wandering around the building? I think it's safe out there.
He's on the
Danny's
couch.
out there, right?
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
on the
You
couch.
should be okay. Yeah, no, we were supposed to go to Detroit for that record and record
The
with
Pussycat record.
the Pussycat record. We did all this pre-production with Tim Fowley, who discovered Joan Jett and Lita Ford and wrote songs for Alice Cooper, Kiss. I mean, a lot of people listening probably know some of this, but
We're going off the rails earlier.
so yeah, it was.
You did make it to Detroit eventually, but it took a couple of years, about a year at least.
So basically, I told this story to one of my coworkers yesterday, actually. And what happened is that Kim Fowley did this brilliant pre-production with us. It was okay. Turn that down. It was like
This is real life happening here, Herb.
Sometimes he'd have us on the phone for like a 9-hour stretch.
Wow.
Maybe I'm remembering that a little long. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but it was.
She's not exaggerating.
It was like hours and hours
On the phone?
But you have to turn that down. But the outcome was amazing. Like he would, like Dream. He would say, "Can you talk the first verse of this?" Something you wouldn't have thought of. Like he had great
brilliant
ideas for
song
backup
arranger.
vocals. He would actually give me inspiration for songs, and he would always say, "Keep it really simple. You want to write like caveman music, something that appeals to people's id. You don't."
It's ironic because he wrote Alley Oop.
Yeah.
About a caveman.
Oh my God, that's right.
You guys cut. So I mean, was it when you finally did get to Detroit and do the Strange Magic record? There had to be positive things from being in the studio with Jim Diamond for 10 days.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, so what happened with Kim Fowley is that a certain someone derailed the whole project, and we ended.
Oh, we'll get into that.
We ended up recording demos, quote air quotes, with Richard Marr, which was cool, but it wasn't how we pictured it. And I said to the band, I was like, "This is our record." I think you said the same thing. Like we just had that feeling, right? Yeah, you have to talk though because I can't hear you nodding.
He's playing dad over there, So Joe's like, he's got a beer, he's got a kid, and he's got a microphone. It's tough decisions today, Joe, huh?
So so that got the Kim Fowley thing got derailed. We recorded in Alston, Mass at the greenhouse, which has since been demolished.
I haven't been over there since they ripped that building down. I don't want to go over there and see that empty lot.
That's where Charmed, I'm sure, was recorded. A lot of punk rock records were recorded there. And so we did a 12-song quote-unquote demo. And then if you want to get into it later, we can. But basically,
well, we're going to talk about that.
Ideal,
I was just trying to.
We made lemonade out of lemons.
What I was trying to find out from you is, would you prefer to do it the way that you did it on Pussycat, or would you prefer to do it in a more organized setting like you did in Detroit? That was what I was getting at. Because there's a big difference there.
There is. Somehow Pussycat came out really well.
Oh yeah, I think it's the best record that you guys have done. Definitely, it's fantastic record. Good, we got some good people mixing it too, so that really helped.
Yeah.
Toshi and Bill Matoya,
Yeah.
But
So then the next record we did, we went to Detroit, recorded with Jim Diamond. He was in the middle of a lawsuit with the White Stripes. So it was a really interesting.
For people that don't know, he recorded the first 2 White Stripes records. Yeah. And a lot of other great garage bands. Probably the most famous garage rock producer in the world, I'd say.
Yeah.
He's definitely up there, without a doubt. Did you like working with Jim Diamond, Joe?
I did.
He had a lot of amps and stuff, didn't he?
Yes, he had a lot of amps.
We did a lot live. Remember that?
Yeah, a lot of it was recorded live.
Like almost everything but the vocals.
It was. Why was it so funny when he said he had a lot of amps?
He had a lot of amps.
I know you like amps.
Yes.
Okay, I know everything's light right now, but it's about to get unlight. I was going to ask you about your connection to Kim, and you talked about him a little bit already. It was much more than just him arranging songs for you. He introduced you guys at that big show at Irving Plaza. That was pretty cool. And I remember he had Band-Aids all over his face for some reason. He was trying to look really weird that day. He didn't have to try too hard.
He came out of the bathroom with all these Band-Aids on his face. And we were like we didn't even recognize him first few seconds.
Kat was a little freaked out by Kim Fowley, wasn't she?
Well, yeah, he had band-aids all over his face.
But
I don't know what that was about.
he was a big fan of the band though. When he had his radio show, he loved the Charms.
Yeah.
So it was a real honor to get to work with a guy like that. I know even though he has kind of a checkered past, as far as songwriting and arranging and producing goes, he's a legend. Was a legend.
Yeah, I mean, you know when you're working with someone with really great ideas and original ideas. You know, and it was just like popcorn brain. Like there was no limit to it.
Right.
So
well, you're sorting out Preston's plan over here. I'm gonna get into something else with you guys. For the listeners that don't know, the Charms recorded the Strange Magic album and then licensed it to Wicked Cool Records, a label run by little Steven Van Zandt. After he pursued the band for almost 3 years. Once the machine that was supposed to promote and market the band never really started up, and following some disputes, and we're talking pretty major disputes, the band was dropped from the label and banned from Van Zandt's Underground Garage radio network, which is ironic since in 2005 the album Pussycat was actually the number one album of the year on the station. Since that happened in 2008, the band has had zero communication and zero airplay from and with Van Zandt. Now that the time has passed and you look back at this whole incident, how do you feel about it? I mean, a lot of time has passed.
I mean, everyone I know who's been in the music business has some horror story. So this is what happens. What did Hunter S. Thompson say? The music business is a long plastic hallway filled with pimps and thieves, and then there's a downside.
He also said I think it was him that said that it's worse than the film industry.
Yeah.
I can't remember the exact quote, but he had a brilliant quote about that. But you guys experienced it firsthand.
Yeah, I mean, Van Zandt wanted our publishing, and I think because we wouldn't sell our publishing in perpetuity for like $6,000 to give him all rights, he didn't like that. And I think I don't generally go here, but I think being a woman, it was more offensive to him. I personally wouldn't agree to sell the publishing. Not that, I mean, Joe had a part in it, but, I think that is what happened to Springsteen. So you'd think that he would know that was against the ethical standard of owning a label. But I mean, it made sense because when you think about it, he had this radio show. It was serious. And I'm not.
Still has
it. This is the first time I've really talked about this publicly because when you tell a story like this, especially when you're close to it, people don't want to believe it, and people think that you're being a jerk. But I think we're far enough away from it now that it's. It's like I didn't want to talk about it at first because it just makes you look bad.
You had a chance too because that story was in the Herald, and and your picture and his picture were side by side in that story. And the guy that I can't remember the writer that interviewed you, he wanted you to go there, but you didn't go there.
I didn't want to go there. So I mean, I think he had this radio show, and when you own the publishing, you get royalties on all the airplay.
It would have been a great situation for him. He's done it with other bands.
Well, a lot of bands that were on the label, like we would talk to, and one of them, what was that band that stayed with us in Somerville? What were they called?
They worked with Iggy Pop.
Yeah, and they were on the label, Detroit. And we talked to the Woggles, and everyone had the same story. He wanted the publishing. I don't think that they were under the same kind of pressure we were. And so when I look back, I'm like, I don't know if it was like a thing like, he just expected me to cave more easily, but I'm not that type of person.
Yeah, I've had this conversation with so many musicians, songwriters. I mean, you can't just give your publishing away. You just can't do it.
Remember,
you can't do it.
Late 2007, we got a call from Discovery Network.
Lifetime, yeah.
Lifetime,
Yeah.
and they wanted to use
So Romantic.
Romantic, which actually we wrote like a sort of like fan song for the Romantics after touring with them. And Wally from the Romantics came down and sang the backup track at Jim Diamond's studio in Detroit. So that song was on Strange Magic, and Discovery Network wanted to use it in the advertisements for the comeback
commercial,
of Trading Spaces. And so it was like a really big deal. Like the money that was on the table just for that 10-week run of that commercial was more than Steven wanted to pay for our entire catalog for in perpetuity.
And basically, he had to cave and sign over the master.
Yeah, he said he didn't want to release it. He would have made the same on the master, but he
did make the same on the master.
He was mad, and so he didn't want to release the master. So Discovery Network said, "Fine, we'll have another band record it."
Oh.
So we would still make the money, and another band would re-record. And then he was like, "Fine, I'll do it."
And they ended up using the song on the commercial. That was.
So they still.
That's the only real deal that happened with him after the whole thing fell apart. Really, there's been nothing else. Every time there's ever been an attempt to communicate, it just hasn't gone anywhere.
Well, I don't even know if that label's still a label.
I mean,
they still own 2 of our records, but like, because you got to get a lawyer and get them back and blah blah blah. But I don't know if they're doing anything.
You know, I managed other bands, 2 of them in particular, that he also wanted to sign to his label, and neither one of them signed. They asked me for my opinion. I gave them my opinion. They didn't go to Wiki Cool. You know the bands, the Go Go Girls and the Love Me Nots. And you know, personally, it's something that I'm so involved in it that it just creeps me out every time I think about it. It's so upsetting to me.
Well, here's a question for any lawyers listening. If a label is no longer an active label, can you get your albums back? Like, as long as they're
You're looking at Herb like Herb's part of the Mersiglio law firm in Dorchester.
You know what's funny? I was just gonna ask that when we get off air. I was gonna be like, "Hey, even if the label goes under, you can't get your stuff
well,
back?"
There have been other, there have been other. We had other lawyers contact them though, and they got nowhere. So it's like,
yeah, but
it comes down to money.
But they were still a label. Like now, they're not a label.
I don't know if they're not a label.
Dershowitz. Can do anything. He's a magician.
Google him. See if they're still around.
I represented Jeff Epstein and Donald Trump, and now I represent the Charms.
Except, yeah, he'd probably want to represent the other side.
Have Steve Google them.
How is that guy going to go down in history? That's what I was thinking on the way here. I'm like, how is that guy going to go down in history?
Dershowitz.
Yeah.
Well, we went from Little Steven to Dershowitz. One's a Harvard professor, and the other is not a Harvard professor. But yeah, I mean, I have a lot of resentment towards the. I never liked the E Street Band, and I don't care that the whole world's hearing me say it. I think Springsteen went downhill when he formed the E Street Band, if you ask me. And
well,
you know,
my favorite thing that Kat ever said, she got back from Russia and found out that we weren't working with Kim Fowley. We're going to work with Little Steven originally was like, I don't want Kim Fowley to produce the record. I'm going to do it. So she goes, oh my God, with Russian accent, are we going to have saxophone on our record? And I'm like, no, we are not.
You know, I don't mind telling anyone this story. You know, when I had the pleasure to hang around with Kim several times, because when I lived in Santa Monica for a year in 2006 to 7, hung out with him. He basically told me that he had fabricated a whole story about having an ear problem, and Little Steven told him he was going to fire him from his radio show if he produced the Charms. So he's like, I need the income, because Kim, you know, even though he does have publishing on some pretty big songs and stuff, you can't live off of that forever, and he didn't want to lose his job. Yeah. I don't think he got paid a lot of money. I think they paid them. I don't even know. I'm not going to say it. I have an idea, but because I've known a few of their DJs. I think I know what they make, but that's besides the point. So he had this Sopranos vibe that he thought he could push on people. He told me that I could never.
If you ever come to New York, I'll fucking kill you.
Exactly. The kids have left the room, by the way, so we can drop the F-bomb.
We were laughing.
You guys heard him say that to me. He threatened me and told him he was on the phone. He didn't do it personally.
You Steve retarded.
Why is that so funny?
That's a great name.
Why is that so funny, Herb? You know, there's other people I can get to produce this show, you know.
Wait, you're pulling a Stephen Bale.
Oh, yes, I am. But when he did say that, I laughed hysterically. I couldn't
So
stop
did we.
laughing.
I wish Herb was there to record it.
I mean, I wish I should have had a tape recorder going that day. I don't know why I did it, because threatening me not to go
That would have been
to
so
New
we could
York
have, like, mixed
was-
it into a song.
was fantastic.
I'm gonna fucking kill you.
It's really funny because a lot of bands I know get airplay on the Underground Garage still, and they all talk to me about it, and they're like, we know what happened, but what are we supposed to do? Even the Love Me Nots, I worked with them long after that. They had their, what's that thing you would call the coolest song in the world?
Oh yeah.
You had several of those, you know what they are. And, you know, I couldn't say to my bands, oh, you can't deal with that guy, because what are you going to do? Not get 5 spins a day on the Underground
I know.
Garage because I don't
Getting all
like
that
the guy,
publishing
you know?
money.
So I managed to draw a line, you know. It wasn't hard. It wasn't easy to draw that line because I don't like the guy. I don't like the guy at all.
No.
And I was close to him at one time. I remember hanging out, driving around his Porsche, going out to everywhere we went. Oh, there's little Steve. It was kind of cool. You know, I've hung out with other celebrities. He wasn't the first. Not even high on the list, actually. Okay, now I'll get mean. But so it was a hard thing to go through, but I had to bring it up and ask you guys. So,
Well, now you know.
you guys played a lot of shows.
I'm past it. Here's the other thing too: is like you go through phases and that, like, realize how unimportant stuff is. Like the stuff you used to worry about, you're like, ugh.
Yeah, I
you
don't.
know?
I did really go crazy over that for a while, but I'm over it now. I'm just moving. I still want to be able to get the records back, but
Someday.
soon as this podcast gets picked up by iHeartRadio and, you know, we become famous and we have 100 million subscribers and I have all this money coming out of my pockets, I'm waiting for you guys to all throw
Then
your
you're
money
gonna
at me.
hire Dershowitz
I will
to get
sue
our
him.
albums.
I will personally sue him myself. You guys played a lot of shows over the years. Do you have any favorite ones that you think about that come to mind? Like, you played a lot of big shows. I mean, were there any? I know the ones I liked that I was at, but I wasn't at all the shows.
What was your favorite?
Record release for Strange Magic.
That was fun.
That was a good one.
At
No,
TT the Bears?
No, in New
No,
York.
in New York.
Oh, yeah, I
Awesome.
remember that. Yeah. There was no opening act.
No.
Yeah, you guys just played a little.
Yeah, we played really good.
You said we weren't going to talk about him anymore, and now here I am bringing
Yeah,
him up
whatever.
again. He introduced the band.
No, we had some good times with Steven. Like, he was a fun guy to hang out with, but just had to do things.
My
A little testy.
I'll just tell you what my personal favorites were because I like to just talk about my favorites. The Nashville New York Dolls show,
Oh, that was
because there were so
awesome.
many cool people that showed up. John Scarpati, Chris Story from Gangrene, my friend Tom Wilson, the roadie, and plus you guys opened for the New York Dolls. And so the place was like electric. That was a good one. And then when you guys opened for Ian Hunter and the Zombies at the Wiltern Theater in LA, that was my
That was
other
a good one. I
favorite
love that.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, those two right there were my two favorites. But you guys had a lot of really good local shows too that were electric. Mostly TT's, I think. You guys had some great shows at TT the Bears. Paradise, that was one of the first shows that I worked with you guys on when you opened for Allison Hell was here not too long ago. We were talking about you guys opened for Kay Hanley at the Paradise.
Oh, yeah.
That was a good one.
You know who else was in Nashville? Tom Peterson.
Oh yeah, Tom Peterson from Cheap Trick showed
Yeah.
up that night. Yeah, that was
I was
Wait,
listening.
this-
Yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
Go
The
ahead.
Sylvain show at the Abbey Lounge. We broke the record for beer sales. And then when everybody left, the whole place was covered in beer cans. Do you remember that? I have a
Yeah, I
picture
do
of it.
remember that. Except you don't remember very well because you didn't play
We
on
didn't
that
play
show.
on that show.
You were there.
No, we just hung out at that
Oh, we
show.
did?
Sylvain came and hung out afterwards, and you guys hung out with him all night.
Yeah.
But it was Cage Teat and
All right,
some
fine. It's
other
the one
band
that Paul
opened.
Stanley showed up at.
Oh,
That
the
was a good
Click. That's I forgot about that. Paul Stanley and Tom. What's the other guy's
Tommy
name?
Thayer.
Tommy Thayer and
And
Doc
Yeah,
McGee.
Doc McGee.
Doc
'cause I like watching
McGee.
Paul Stanley because I could see him. He's tapping his fingers on the.
And remember how he shook hands? Remember that?
Yeah.
He went,
Yeah. But you know what's really funny about that night? Everyone was all excited because Paul Stanley from Kiss was there. I was like, Doc McGee's here, you know, because he managed Motley Crue, Def Leppard,
wasn't he like
Kiss.
super mean?
He was okay to me. He shook my hand. Paul Stanley did, and he rubbed his. He did one of these things. Yeah.
Well, I mean, he doesn't want to get sick.
I don't blame him now that that's probably good. He doesn't shake everyone's hand. But there were a lot of great Charm shows. I mean, I could think of even more. There were so many
You
of
know
them.
what? One of my favorites was Providence, the first show where we opened. We were the headliner. Of
It was a
the
battle of the
Battle of
bands.
the bands for Little Steven's radio thing.
I have to tell my funniest thing. I have to tell the story about the funniest thing that happened that night.
Yeah.
The set's over. Everyone's in the dressing room. Ellie V comes walking in and she goes, "I can't stand these leather pants." And she pulled them down in front of a room full of people. I'm like, you just pulled your pants down in front of the whole room.
It was really hot.
That was.
When the club told us to park the van.
Wasn't there a fight
There's
afterwards?
No,
No.
there's no parking. And someone parked literally behind us. Nobody ran anywhere just because we were in a no parking because they told us to park there. We couldn't get out. So I got in the van and just put it in reverse and pushed the pickup truck out of the way with the van and
We
destroyed
had to
the whole
get out of
front end.
there. We had to get out of there. It sucked.
Wow.
Remember that?
We could,
Were you
yeah, I
there
do
when we did that?
remember that. I do remember that. That show was a great
I
show
felt bad
because
for that guy, but I was like, dude, you want to be a douche and like park your truck right, like just to be a jerk. He like blocked us in.
I do.
I had to
That's.
get out of there.
I'm glad you brought that show up because it was fascinating. There were like 10 bands played, and then
Yeah.
you guys played, and
That
it
was really fun.
really
and Asbury
awesome.
Park was fun too.
Yep. There were
That
a
was
lot of
like the
good shows
next-
in New Jersey and New York. Actually, you guys had a lot of good
Yeah.
shows down there,
And
and
Irving Plaza was fun both times.
and Detroit. Detroit was good when you opened for the New York Dolls. A lot of cool people showed up at that show. That was a
Yeah.
good one.
That was fun.
Yeah, there were a lot of good ones. I don't know. Let's see what else is on my list here. Not much more, don't worry. Okay, I do have one more question for you. Do you think with the ever-changing landscape that's going on and that the Charms could adapt to the new terrain, like even here locally, playing those club shows again like you used to? Could you guys do that again?
No,
You guys are never going to play again, are you?
I wouldn't say that. Like we've have some ideas about, people to jam with. Maybe not as the Charms, but just like something else. But
I know a bass player that just bugs me every other day that he wants to play with you guys, and he's in one of the biggest bands
I know,
in Boston.
no, that's true. But one of our really good friends is a bass player too, so has a recording studio. So start jamming.
What?
So-
Really?
But the
Do we
thing
have to be
is-
so vague about the fact that we're talking about Scott Riebling right
yeah,
now?
we've just been like throwing the idea around.
Letters to Cleo,
he
Scott
owns-
Riebling?
Yeah, but he owns a restaurant, so he's super busy. So it's like really hard
Stoked.
to actually get it together.
And you know what? That dude makes good pizza, man.
It's like the best pizza.
Really? If you had
Once
Stoked
eat
Herb,
it,
good
Oh
stuff,
my
man. They're
God.
in Brookline, right?
Brookline.
Did he open another
They're
location?
opening a location next, like right down the street from the Cambridge Common.
For people that aren't from this area, because I know I have people all over the world that listen. Brookline is part of Boston, actually. It's the more uppity section of town, I guess you would say, right? But so you are considering.
Yeah, we're just talking about it, but we just have to get it together.
I can't imagine Joe not playing live anymore. I mean, Jesus, Joe.
Yeah, what's up with you?
I don't know.
Get it together.
But yeah, it's you have kids and you have jobs and it's a lot.
Do you guys get to go out to see a lot of other shows? I know I saw you at the
No.
Liars show. No.
No, because you got to get a
Which shows did we
babysitter. It's
see?
like
Liars.
that's
Ace
why it was
Frehley?
so
We
awesome.
saw
we could
Ace
bring our
Frehley.
You
kids.
went to see-
Oh
July.
yeah, we saw Ace
Ace
Frehley
Frehley,
because
and
our
then-
friend Jeremy.
Joe loves Ace Frehley.
No, tell him why
He
we went
loves
to see
Ace
Ace Frehley.
Frehley.
No, Jeremy from the Shazam. We toured with them.
Oh,
in
yeah,
Florida.
yeah.
Yeah, he's Ace Frehley's guitar player now.
Are you kidding me? Wow,
So-
I like the Shazam. They were
So we
cool.
saw what's his name, the guy that was on tour with us on the New York
Oh,
Film
Night
Ride.
Bob.
Night Bob was
Night
there.
Bob.
So we hung out with him.
Did you
and-
get to talk to Ace?
Oh no, no.
But you met Ace before.
Like literally,
Yeah.
the band goes on stage, they warm the crowd up, and then Ace comes out of his dressing room, gets on stage,
Yeah,
and then
those
goes
guys
right
just,
back.
Those guys just kick ass and make Ace look awesome.
By the way,
Yeah.
speaking of Kiss, we talked about Ace and Paul. Gene Simmons was a fan of the Charms. Didn't he?
Oh,
Did you
yeah.
guys? Didn't you went?
Forgot about that guy.
But you guys went and hung out with him in a strip bar in New York.
Oh yeah, and he pretended to like not recognize us or something. I don't know. He was kind of like.
They
not-
said I love the Charms.
Oh yeah. But he was like kind of.
He is
But,
Gene
yeah.
Simmons. What did you expect
I didn't expect
from the
much.
great Gene Simmons?
And Pete, our bass player, and Dennis went to a local bar and got like shit faced. And they were like, we're not going to Scores with you. It was Gene Simmons' book signing. So they went and got shit faced. On the way home, they laid across the two benches in the van. And we had to like take turns sitting on the floor in between the two captain seats in the front. And we get to like where Dennis's car's parked in some Chinese restaurant, like on Route 9, where
Route
he
9
would
in
meet
Framingham.
us and we'd pick him up to go to New York. So we drove back that night, like overnight. So we get there and it's just the sun's just coming out. They wake up and they're like, "Hey, where are we?" And we're like, "Ah!" They're like, "You guys smell so bad right now."
I'm sure
then
Kat loved that.
Dennis gets out of the car and he looks like he just climbed out of a coffin. He's like sheet white, and his eyes are all bloodshot. And he gets out and he looks. Our van was white and it had this like super black glass. And he looks at his reflection in the glass and he goes, "I look handsome." We're like, "Yeah, you do."
It's funny how meeting Gene Simmons could lead to this story. But
Hey, this is being on the road.
yeah,
Pete and Dennis were
It's
awesome
not
together.
glamorous. God, I know. Yeah, being on the road is so like. I think some guy I met who's a songwriter, he was like, we were talking about touring, and like I know I have a few friends who've done a lot of touring who feel the same way. Like I never loved it. It was never my favorite thing. And this
Really?
dude, yeah, and this
you toured so much though.
yeah, but it wasn't my favorite part of being in a band. And I mean you have to do it, but this guy that I met who's a songwriter, he goes, "Well, of course you didn't like touring. You're a creative person. Like you'd rather be creating, and you're not creating when you're on. Like, and the best part is being on stage. And then you take people out on tour, and they have this like glamorous idea. Jeff Connolly actually said, he goes, 95% of touring is like just crap. Like it's just driving, and it's like 5% that's really great because you're on stage. So
That's true, I guess.
my experience is the people who are the worst to tour with are the people that are the most excited to tour, because they have this like mental model in their head that it's going to be this amazing glamorous experience, and a lot of it is like hauling gear in and out, setting up, eating pizza, drinking
Sharing beds in
PBR.
hotel rooms.
Yep.
Yeah.
Driving late at night when you're exhausted. Bus tours too. Like you have a crew, but you're like squished in like sardines. One person gets kennel cough and everyone gets sick. And it's like,
Oh yeah, sickness on
Yeah.
tour is just not good.
and like it's not glamorous at all. What did the zombies say about the bus?
I don't know.
Remember they were like, it was horrid being on buses. We've forgotten. They were so
We've
polite about it.
forgotten.
It was like, but it's like my cousins got on the bus in Seattle. They came to the show and were like, here, come hang out on the tour bus. They get on the bus and they're all in the maritime industry and they go in the bunks and they're like, these bunks are exactly like what's on a submarine. So yeah.
Not very glamorous.
It's not glamorous. So it was probably my least favorite part of being. I mean, the being on stage thing was fun, but the rest
It's
of
like
it,
being a carny.
it's like being a carny. Yes. I have a coworker whose parents were carnival
Carnies?
workers. Yeah. She grew up on tour with the carnival all summer. Yeah.
Well, we could talk all day, but I want to thank you guys for coming in. I'm glad this worked out this time. Unfortunately, we had that incident in Salem
There's a lot
where
of screaming in the back.
yeah, I don't know if that's going to come through.
It is.
Not. If it does, well, we had somebody playing drums upstairs last week. I had Mark Bell from the Joe Perry Project in here, and there was some guy drumming upstairs, but it didn't come through that much when I watched it. It was pretty good. But thank you guys for coming on. I really appreciate it. And thank you for letting us use the song.
Shorter. Yeah.
Thank you for letting us use the song.
Use any of the songs you want.
Thank you.
And thanks
We
It's
for-
all
will.
yours.
We will.
For free.
And
You're giving me the publishing? Little Stephen Ricardo, I want the publishing. Thanks, guys.
I wonder if the kids are fighting.
All right. Right now we're going to play what we are calling the hidden or buried treasure segment, but what really is our featured track of the week. This song comes from the band Chastity Belt, and it's called The Process. love that song, man. Don't you, Herb?
Woo!
A good one, right? That was The Process by Chastity Belt. The song appears as part of a split 7-inch single with the band Loose Tooth. This single is actually up on Bandcamp, and if you buy it, this is really cool. Check it out. 50% of either track will benefit the Australian wildfire relief efforts, specifically the fire relief for First Nations communities and the County Fire Authority. Chastity Belt was formed in Walla Walla, Washington by Julia Shapiro, Lydia Lund, Annie Truscott, and Gretchen Grimm. Very cool band that I've been following for a few years now. They're still living up in Seattle. Thank you to the band and their management company for sending us that track. I really appreciate it. Well, that's it. I want to thank our sponsor, JLS Design. Don't go anywhere, Joe, because Joe's still on video, right? Because he's going to help me with this segment. JLS Design in 187 Main Street, Leicester, Mass. Cherry Valley section of Worcester. They do custom screen printing and embroidery. It's a great place for bands to get their t-shirts, hats, hoodies, etc. JLSDesignPrinting.com. JLS Design Sales at gmail.com. They're going to print up more of these shirts that Joe's modeling for us right now. I'm glad you wore that, Joe. Very helpful. I was just there yesterday, and we're working it out. These shirts have been famously worn and modeled all over America by our diverse audience, so we're excited to get more. My email address is twistedrico@gmail.com. You can find me on Instagram at @twistedrico. You can also now find us on YouTube, where we've been getting a tremendous response. I hate to use that word tremendous. Let me change that. An outstanding response. Outstanding response. Herb is the reason for this because he convinced me that we needed to be on YouTube. And I was like, no, this has got to be for the geeky music fans that listen, not the people that sit around and watch. I watched the Mark Bell episode like 5 times.
So you believe this guy was in marketing?
I was.
Ouch.
I marketed.
It was a different time.
Let me just tell you something. When I was in the music business,
it was a different time.
Yes, that's right.
when I was in the music business, there was no YouTube.
Sure.
YouTube didn't exist when I was in the music business.
Let me mail my proclamation on the town post.
My show has been hijacked. Please send me your questions, comments, etc. Once again, twistedrico@gmail.com. And check out our Patreon page where you can sponsor us for $1 a month. This is Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico. I'm your host, Steve Ricardo. And until next time we say goodbye, you ready? We love you, Busy Phillips. Keep the rock and roll alive. Busy's out here listening. Busy's listening. Thanks, Herb. Thanks, guys.